What's the most painfully awkward moment you've ever experienced? A few years ago, I landed an interview at a top-tier marketing agency in Chicago. This place was everything I'd ever wanted. Open floor plan, espresso machine in the lobby, people walking around with tattoos and MacBooks, wearing sneakers with tailored blazers. I had been stalking their Instagram for months, dreaming about what it'd be like to work there. I prepped like crazy. I rehearsed my answers, memorized their top campaigns, even Googled the hiring manager to find mutual interests. The night before, I barely slept. I was so hyped. That morning, I put on my best white shirt, the one that says, "I'm serious but cool," and skipped breakfast because my stomach felt off. Huge mistake. Midway through the interview, right when I was hitting my stride, answering a question about market segmentation, my stomach made this deep, gurgling sound, the kind that makes your spine go cold. I tried to keep talking, tried to push through, but I could feel this pressure building like a soda can being shaken. Then it happened. It wasn't loud, but it was sharp. A quick little PTF. Just enough. And in a glass conference room, even a whisper sounds like a cannon. I kept my face completely still. Like, maybe if I didn't react, she'd think it was the chair. She didn't. The HR manager's lips twitched. She reached over without a word and turned on the little desk fan. That's when I knew it was over. Not just the interview. My soul was leaving my body. The rest of the conversation was a blur. I tried to act natural, like I hadn't just detonated a silent but deadly in my dream job interview, but every sentence felt like it was happening underwater. I didn't get a call back, but I did get a story that still makes me sweat at night. Carly and I had been dating for about 3 months. We met on Hinge, had a decent first date, and kept things going because, I don't know, she was sweet, safe, the kind of girl my mom would love. But I couldn't shake this feeling that I was trying too hard to feel something that just wasn't there. My friend Melissa, on the other hand, was like my human confessional booth. We worked together, grabbed lunch all the time, and she always told it like it was. One night, after a brutal week, I asked her to meet for drinks. I needed to vent. Over margaritas. I let it all out. "I feel like Carly's trying to love me harder than I know how to love her back," I said. "Like, she means well, but it's like dating a well-trained Labrador." Melissa laughed, and I kept going. I told her about the lack of chemistry, how awkward the silences were, how I found myself zoning out during our conversations. At one point, I even said, "She kisses like she's trying to resuscitate me after I drowned." It was cathartic. When I got home, I flopped on the bed and texted Melissa, "Thanks for tonight. I needed to let that out. Carly's kind, but I feel like I'm dating a well-meaning potato." I hit send, and immediately realized I had sent it to Carly. The name at the top of the screen stared back at me like a death sentence. Carly. She read it within seconds. The typing bubble started. Stopped. Started again. Then nothing. No message. No call. Just silence. She unmatched me on everything. Blocked my number. Ghosted like I was a bad dream she didn't want to remember. To this day, I triple-check every message I send. Every damn one. It was month 6 of the pandemic, and I was working fully remote from my tiny apartment. My job in digital ops had me on video calls basically from morning to dinner, and I'd developed this routine of looking presentable from the waist up while wearing whatever I wanted below camera. On this particular Monday, I had 2 back-to-back Zoom calls. The first was our weekly team check-in, a casual, half-asleep affair. The second was with a potential client from San Francisco. I had a 10-minute break in between and figured I had time to make coffee, scroll Reddit, and mentally reset. So I threw on my headset, brewed a cup, came back to my desk in my t-shirt and boxers, and lazily clicked the next Zoom link. I didn't check the name. I didn't check the time. I just assumed I was early. I sat back, feet up, sipping coffee, humming the Mandalorian theme. At one point, I muttered, "Why the hell are we even doing these meetings? They could just send an email." Then I heard it. Hey, I think your mic is on." I froze, looked up. 6 people were on the call, all with their cameras on, all in suits. One was the managing director, the other was our potential 6-figure client. I panicked, tried to hit the mute button, missed, and in the chaos, knocked my entire cup of coffee directly into my lap. Burning, wet, half-naked, I jumped up and cursed loudly, forgetting the camera was still on. The client's face was frozen in horror. I tried to salvage it, sat down, apologized, gave some weak line about early Monday energy, but the damage was done. We lost the client. I kept my job, but I became a cautionary tale. They literally brought it up during new hire orientation. Always check your Zoom settings. We had a guy once. I was best man at my brother's wedding. We've always been close, more like best friends than siblings. When he asked me to speak at the reception, I took it seriously. I wrote a long, heartfelt speech full of inside jokes, childhood memories, and even some light roasting. Just enough to keep people laughing, but respectful. The rehearsal dinner went fine. I did a quick dry run, and people chuckled. But on the actual day, nerves kicked in. The ceremony was beautiful. The bride looked like something out of a magazine, and I had 2 whiskeys on an empty stomach. Big mistake. By the time it was my turn to speak, my hands were sweaty, and I was feeling real loose. I started off okay. Talked about our childhood, his weird obsession with Pokemon cards, the time he broke his arm trying to skateboard off the roof. Then I veered into dangerous territory. I made a joke about how he used to be a serial dater, how we never thought he'd settle down. Honestly, I said into the mic, when he started dating Amanda, we all took bets on how long it would last. I lost $20, thanks guys. The room went dead silent. I tried to save it. I said something about how they defied the odds and how true love finds a way. But the damage was done. Amanda's dad looked like he was going to throw his champagne at me. Her maid of honor gave me a death glare so cold I felt it in my spine. My brother pulled me aside later and said, "Dude, what the hell?" They stayed married. I still see Amanda at family holidays, but to this day, she calls me Vegas odds with a very fake smile. So I signed up for a new gym after moving to Seattle. It was one of those high-end places with eucalyptus towels and mood lighting. I was determined to get back in shape, and on my second visit, I decided to try the rowing machine. There were rows of them, all lined up facing a mirror, which meant you could watch yourself suffer in real time. I was halfway through a 20-minute endurance row, sweating like a maniac, when a girl walked in and got on the machine next to me. She was athletic, calm, didn't even seem to be breathing hard. I wanted to impress her. So I rowed harder. I pushed myself way beyond my limit, my legs shaking, arms trembling. I was going full beast mode, grunting, sweating, breathing like I was being chased through a forest. Then I felt something give in my stomach, not a muscle, something deeper. I instantly knew. It was a fart. But not just any fart. It was loud, echoey, and horrifyingly wet. In that perfectly silent gym, it sounded like a small explosion. I froze. So did she. She slowly turned to me, expression unreadable, then turned back to her rower and calmly moved 3 machines away without saying a word. I considered abandoning the gym forever. I came back 2 weeks later. She was there. She saw me and just said, "Explosive progress?" I've never felt smaller in my life. A few years ago, I worked at a mid-sized tech company where office gossip was practically a sport. There was a guy named Tom, VP of sales, who was universally disliked. Smug, condescending, always taking credit for other people's work. I avoided him like the plague. One day, after a brutal meeting where Tom had steamrolled a junior employee, I messaged my friend Claire on Slack. "If Tom's ego gets any bigger, we're going to have to start orbiting it." She replied with a laughing emoji, and I kept going. Pretty sure his mirror files a restraining order every time he looks into it. Then I screenshotted the convo and sent it to our private group chat, just for fun. Except I didn't. I had forwarded it directly to Tom, no subject. Just the screenshot of me trash-talking him, with his name in bold and all. I stared at the screen, frozen. I felt my soul detach from my body and hover above me. I wanted to puke. 2 minutes later, I got a one-line reply. "Thanks for the feedback." He never brought it up again, but he made my life hell in 1,000 subtle ways. Assigned me to dead-end accounts, cut me out of meetings, and during my next performance review, I got the classic not-quite leadership material speech. Lesson learned: always triple-check your recipients. I met Mia on Bumble. We clicked instantly. Our chats were flirty but fun, and she had this sarcastic sense of humor that completely disarmed me. After a week of texting, she invited me to a small dinner party her friend was throwing. I said yes. I showed up with a bottle of wine and my best "I'm totally chill" attitude. The party was at this sleek, modern apartment with low lighting, lo-fi music, and about 8 people, mostly strangers. I was doing okay. Charming, I thought, until she introduced me to one guy who looked oddly familiar. "Dan, this is my dad," she said. I laughed. Thought she was joking, like a really weird joke. So I leaned into the bit and said, "Nice to meet you, sir. I promised to have your daughter home before midnight." Classic awkward joke, right? Except no one laughed. He gave me a long, uncomfortable look and said, "You realize I can Google you, right?" Turns out, Mia wasn't joking. Her dad was 48. She was 24, I was 28. Somehow, I hadn't asked about her parents, and she'd never mentioned him being at the party. And apparently, I had been flirting with Mia in front of him the entire night. Later, I found out she actually wanted to see how I'd react. Said she liked to test people under pressure. I failed. I made up an excuse, left early, and blocked her the next day. I still see her sometimes on dating apps. I swipe left every time, out of pure PTSD. I was at a friend's wedding at a fancy country club. Everything was upscale. String quartet, open bar, oysters on ice. At one point during the reception, I went to the bathroom. The place was spotless, with marble counters and a weirdly echoey acoustic. There were 3 urinals, but no one else inside. Or so I thought. While I was standing there, doing my thing, I pulled out my phone with one hand and checked a text from my buddy who hadn't shown up. I whispered to myself, "You lucky bastard, you dodged this circus." And then I laughed. Not a normal laugh, a full cackling laugh that echoed off the walls like a madman had just lost it in the restroom. Then I said out loud, again to myself, "God, I hate weddings. Just people pretending they're not terrified of dying alone." That's when the toilet flushed behind me. A stall door opened. The groom's father, who had given an emotional speech 30 minutes prior, stepped out. We locked eyes. I nodded like an idiot and said, "Nice toast earlier." He didn't reply, just washed his hands in silence and walked out. Later, I caught him glancing at me during the father-daughter dance with this deep look of existential sadness, like I had said out loud what he'd been secretly feeling. I left before cake. Back in college, I used to babysit for extra cash. One of my regular clients was this wealthy couple with a 5-year-old son named Carter. Easy kid. Liked Legos and Paw Patrol. The parents were chill, paid well, and always left snacks for me. One evening, they asked if I could stay a little later because they were attending a gala. I said sure. Around 10 p.m., Carter fell asleep on the couch. I was bored, so I started scrolling through TikTok, then Instagram. Then, because I'm an idiot, I decided to snoop. I opened their bookshelf, found a family photo album, and started flipping through it. Just curious. About 10 pages in, I came across a picture of Carter's mom at what looked like a bachelorette party. Except she wasn't with her husband. She was with my ethics professor. They weren't just in the same photo. They were making out in a hot tub. There were hands, there were angles. I stared at it way too long. I snapped it shut, feeling gross and weird. Then, I heard a voice behind me. "Why are you touching that?" I turned around. Carter, standing there in his pajamas, looking at me like I'd just killed his dog. Before I could explain, he started crying. Loud, dramatic sobs. I tried to calm him down, swore I wasn't doing anything bad, even offered to let him eat a cookie at 10:30 p.m. But he kept crying. When his parents came home, the mom looked at the shelf, then back at me, and just said, "We'll call you if we need you again." They never did. Also, my professor failed me that semester. I still don't know if it's related. There's this girl, Lindsay, who I had been low-key in love with since freshman year of college. Smart, sarcastic, always wore band t-shirts with jeans that somehow looked better than actual formal wear on anyone else. We had the kind of friendship that almost became something, but never quite crossed the line. One night, we were at a house party, and the vibe felt different. She leaned on me more. We danced a little. She laughed at everything I said. I had that kind of delusional confidence that only comes from red Solo cups and hope. Outside, while smoking with a few people, she turned to me and said, "You know, you're kind of the reason I've stayed sane this year." My heart dropped. This was it, my rom-com moment. I decided right then to tell her how I felt. I pulled her aside near the porch, away from the music, and went for it. "I think I've been in love with you since, like, orientation week," I said. "I've just been too scared to ruin what we have." She blinked, smiled awkwardly, and said, "Oh, I thought you were gay." I laughed, thought she was joking. She wasn't. She genuinely thought I was gay. Because I liked art films, didn't try to sleep with her, and once complimented her shoes with the word elegant. I didn't know what to say. We stood there in silence for a full 10 seconds before she just said, "I guess this changes things, huh?" We stayed friends for a bit, but it was never the same. I still flinch when people use the word elegant. I was trying to impress this girl I had a crush on by agreeing to go to a hot yoga class with her. She was very into wellness, kale smoothies, full moon rituals, stuff I had no clue about. But I thought, how hard can yoga be? Answer, very. The room was a 105-degree ash. The air was thick. People were already sweating before the class even started. I tried to play it cool, but 15 minutes in, I was drenched, shaking, and regretting every burrito I had eaten that week. Then came the happy baby pose. If you don't know it, it involves lying on your back, holding your feet in the air like you're a baby getting a diaper change. It's not flattering. Not at all. While in that position, I let out a fart. Not on purpose, not subtle. It echoed. People heard. Some chuckled. The instructor said, "We welcome all kinds of release in this space," which somehow made it worse. I glanced at my crush. She was holding in a laugh so hard her face was red. After class, she patted my back and said, "You did really well for your first time." We never went on a second date, but I now own a yoga mat, just in case I ever need to humiliate myself again on my own terms.